Okay, I'll continue here. Daniel thought, then said, hmm. Daniel thought, then said, I didn't know if you were going to kill me. Besides, I thought that if you were going to shoot me, you'd pick a time where you could escape. I was actually shocked that you'd try to kill me now when a cop could come by and see that you'd have shot me in the back like you tried. I mean, hey, what was really I mean, that was really not very bright. Poor planning, bad timing. I mean, what's a rapist doing on a bunk allowing the girl he's going to rape to let her have her gun and phone? You'd have a lot of explaining to do if you were successful and a cop was to show up now. Sally continued to look down with tears in her eyes. She didn't say anything, but I'm not supposed to have much time to wait after shooting you. Daniel looked a little leery and asked, what do you mean? You don't have much time, said Sally, touching the truck's stick shift. She then lifted up her head and slowly looked up at Daniel with hurt eyes and said, They're coming. Sally and Daniel then turned toward the windshield and looked out into the darkness. This next story I'm about to read in my novel, this one's called Leap of Faith. Leap of Faith. Yeah, Leap of Faith? I don't know, it's a Leap of Faith. I don't care. It's Leap of Faith, yeah. Okay. It was still dark as the van crossed the city of Twin Falls known bridge. Well-known bridge. Minutes after the crossing, Yesua Yasir started taking the van over a snowy dirt road that was very bumpy. One of the Muslims asked, What if we attract attention, brother? What then? Yesua Yasir looked at the dirt road, tried to avoid rocks and potholes, and said, There are many brothers now working in Twin Falls Police Department. I hear one of them is very authoritative sheriff. He's like a sheriff. Get it? A sheriff? Some of his fellows laughed. Seriously, though, he is a sheriff, said Yasser. Muhammad Ziad Jabir, the young-looking Muslim, asked, which means that if a kafir cup questions us, he should be able to come to our rescue. Minutes later, all the Muslims in the van were dragging Atif's lifeless body out of the van and carrying him to the edge of the canyon on the east side of the bridge. The eastern horizon was starting to light up a little as sunrise approached. We better hurry, brothers, said Wali al-Din. We are running out of darkness. 10 minutes later, they were standing on the rim. After swinging Atif's body back and forth 4 times to get them momentum to toss him down into the canyon, they let go and hurled his body off the edge. But there was no splash in the darkness. Instead, there was a thud. They all looked over the edge and saw Atif's body on the edge of a ledge that was some feet lower, lying in the snow. Now what? Asked Mahbub. Good enough, said Yesua Yasir, who had killed Atif. When they started walking back to the van, they saw car lights coming. The group of Muslims felt fear as they hoped it wasn't a cop car. Suddenly, a huge spotlight lit up the van, proving it was a cop car. The cop car stopped about 20 feet from the van, and the cop inside started typing its license plate down into the computer. Yesua Yasir felt sick. They all felt sick. What are we going to do? Asked the young-looking Ziad with a look of feeling of panic setting in. That van is stolen. Yesua Yasir thought and said, We'll act like we didn't know English. That we are new to America, to escape the hell that Egypt became when Kafar were afraid to be tourists in it from the fear of having their heads sawed off by bad Muslims. This will force the cop to call one of our brothers in the Twin Falls Police Department to translate for us. As he's listening to us in Arabic, we'll tell him that we bought the van off some guy who was in Twin Falls yesterday. Some guy out of a job who said he needed money, and we bought it off of him for a cheap $50,000 to help him out. That we then decided to pray at this canyon while the sun came up. So that's why we are here. If he asks to see our identification, what then? Asked another to Yasir. We'll tell our brother to translate in English for the cop, to tell the cop that we're on a pilgrimage from Seattle to see the new mosque in Twin Falls, said Yesua Yasir with confidence. We'll tell him that he came all the way from Omaha to see it with us. And with that, they all walked nervously back to the van. They waved at the cop, who was still in his car with the spotlight on the van. The cop got out of his car and said, Hello there. Mind if I ask what you're doing out here? The whole group of Muslims shrugged and acted like they didn't know English. Very well, said the cop. If you really can't speak English, I can get you some. Yeah. Very well, said the cop. If you really can't speak English, I can get you some terrorists, I mean Muslim cops, who will do the translation for you. And he went to his car to call for those who could do the translating. As they waited back at the rig, Daniel was outside trying to put on chains. The snow was preventing him from moving. He managed to get 2 chains on and was working on the third. As he tried to get the chains on, a sack of guns sat next to him. 2 of the guns were his, and the other one was what Sally used to try to kill him with. After such an event, Daniel didn't want any weapons near him and told her to stay inside. Suddenly, right when he was about done with the third tire chain, he heard a motor engine. But instead of coming from the southwest, like Sally said they'd be coming from, it was coming from the other direction. Daniel stopped what he was doing and grabbed for his Glock. A couple of minutes later, he saw a spray of snow and lights. It was a snow removal truck, possibly coming from Eli, clearing the snow off of the road. Daniel hid his gun and waved at the guy clearing the snow. The guy waved back. It was getting light as 3 cars followed the snow remover passed by. A few minutes later, the snowblower and cars disappeared into the distance. Crap, I put on chains for nothing, shouted Daniel with anger. I could have slept. Trucker's luck strikes again. Daniel calmed himself down, then said to himself, I'm tired. Well, I'm tired. Well, I needed the exercise anyway, I guess. Daniel put down one heavy rusted chain in front of the tire he was going to chain up. He then got back up into the cab. He looked at Sally, who was lying on her back in his lower bunk, looking like she had a lot on her mind. Where are your rescuers? asked Daniel. Yeah. Where are your rescuers? I didn't hear any phone ringing while putting on the chains. Did they forget about you, being that you're a woman? I mean, shouldn't they have had my head resting on my patootie now with a lot of, yeah, on my patootie by now with a lot of Aloha snack bar going on about it? Wasn't that to happen at least an hour ago? Dane started up his truck, looked at the time on his cell phone and said, "Oh, wait. I still have an hour before I can legally drive. Crazy as this might sound, I'm actually kind of hoping your buds show up. The adrenaline might keep me from passing out at the wheel, which has come close to happening a few times. Uh, shh, don't tell my company. Man, it's a horrible feeling trying to keep awake to get a load in on time when you're dead tired. Seriously, I don't know which is more deadly now. The Aloha snack bar is awaiting me, or my head, or my need to sleep so I can keep tons of potatoes straight on the road." Daniel turned off the engine and said, "I'm not moving this rig until I'm legally able to do so. I'll wait for them to get me. No doubt. No doubt I'll be doing the shooting by myself because you don't want to end up in a hell that Muhammad said more women go into because they cuss and show ungratefulness toward their husbands. And because women, have half a brain as compared to that of a man, right? And that's the latter reasoning of Mo as to why and because they women have half a brain compared to that of a man, right? And it's that latter reasoning of Mo as to why you really won't lift a finger to help me, right? You really do think you have half a brain as compared to that of a man, right? Compared to a man, don't you? Well, you better say yes, girl, or you'll prove Mo to be just another charismatic, sex-crazed bandit cult leader who had a way of using a guy's penis to murder for him. Sally didn't say anything, but just stared up at the upper bunk. Daniel thought, then said, "You know, I don't blame you for not trusting me. I did kind of pretty much lead you on into playing like I didn't know I was onto you ever since you talked about forgetting your flash drive pin. So, guess what I'm going to do?" Daniel went over and picked up a laptop that Sally was looking at. Last night, he opened it up and found it still glowing with power, being that it was still plugged into the wall. Daniel did some typing on the keyboard. He then handed the laptop over to Sally and said, "That's the first entry to Niles Neville's journal, going back 7 years before the nuking of the Willis Tower. It was written by him while he was still a Muslim. It will show his evolution and how he ended up being the man that helped get me doing what I'm doing now. If you want, go into my documents and click on my trucking journal, and you can start reading not only Neville's thoughts, but my thoughts. You can see my hopes and fears, see my desires and imperfections. You can see the battles with doubt and triumphs with faith in a God that, contrary to what you believe, really does love you enough to suffer and die on a cross for you, to hang naked in humiliation for you. A God that loves all people, including the meanest, vilest Muslim. You read those journals, and you will see me believing in a God who is working all things to the glory and counsel of his will, and as the Injil says. Yes, the Injil.